I love to just sit and watch work. How's that? Today we're talking about the dignity of work. It's Labor Day, so we're going to celebrate by talking about work.
It's a good
Now,
topic.
yeah, there's so Paul Malloy, Randy Burgoyne, back as usual. We had a lot of fun with our guests last time with Amelia, and we look forward to having more guests on. So,
Absolutely.
but labor, work. My first job, as imagine a lot of young men, was mowing lawns.
Hmm.
I would go around and mow and trim and sweep, and I made kind of extra effort to make the lawn look good, and their driveway and walks were swept of things. That was just kind of my pride in it. Now
Good. Good.
it wasn't my career, right? But let's talk a little bit about work in people's lives now. So, Paul, when you think about the role of work in our lives
hmm
beyond just
hmm
paycheck, what comes to mind?
Well, certainly, I think that work is more than just money, right? It ideally, it should be about purpose and identity, and I think that that can also lead into belonging and feel like you're making a difference within a specific community, whether it's where you live or it's a community of professionals. And then that leads to this idea that you're contributing, that you're making something worthwhile, that you're doing something that counts.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we have an identity given to us when we pick
hmm
a career, right?
hmm Right.
Teacher, right? Isn't that an identity? A policeman, a doctor, a construction worker,
Sure. My first job was paper boy,
paper boy. There you go.
right?
And think about how much that applies to you emotionally and
hmm hmm
mentally to be able to have an identity and saying, "Yeah, I am a garbage man, and I'm proud of it." Take that role. Now they don't call them garbage men anymore; they call them sanitation workers.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I'd like to talk about more about what that entails, and in contrast with our culture that we've got now, where everything has to be done quickly, and
Right.
um,
Right.
what persistence do we have? What discipline do we have to show up for work?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've said before that some of the most important lessons in life come from work itself, and hopefully, we can speak to that because it is, I think, vital not only to us as human beings, as individuals, but I think it's important to recognize that everyone has a role to play in society. So, again, our intent here this evening is to explore that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to take responsibility,
Right.
recognize the effort that maybe you're working for a company, or at least there's a customer, there's some
Right.
beneficiary to
Right.
that.
Right.
Take pride in the work you do, even if it's
I love that.
taking out the trash or mowing lawns. You take pride in the fact that you do a good work.
hmm And that is something for sure that we try to pass on, to instill, to teach our children as they were growing up, and trying to help them to not just simply do the bare minimum, but also to see where there was opportunity to do more, as in um, any place that you are, you can um, do something quickly and easily to make it better. And just one quick story is that one time on a journey, multi-state, on the freeway, we would pull over at a rest stop. We pack sandwiches. This is back when our children were young and we were, relatively poor, I guess.
Right.
And so we'd pack picnic lunches as we would head across state. And at the rest stops, we would grab grocery sacks, the plastic grocery sacks that we bring with us, and we would pick up trash at the grocery stop, or I mean, sorry, at the rest stop.
Yeah.
And we would fill those bags and then drop them off at an appropriate place to dispose of that. And I think that, the idea that we can make a simple difference is very much a reality. I know that when I go into a public restroom, that I always wipe down the counters. It's just something that it's like I can make this better than the way it was when I walked in. And I think that that's part of the take pride in what you can bring to your community.
And I would imagine as a teacher, you
Mhm.
spend a lot of time out of the classroom preparing for that class, that
Yep.
event.
Yep.
And
For sure.
there's glamorous and unglamorous times.
Elements to the job. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as I've started at a new school, new set of subjects, still within social studies, but some things that I've never taught before. There's a lot of preparation. In fact, in a way, I'm playing a little bit of hooky right now because tomorrow I have students, and I'll definitely be ready. But point being is that there's a lot of time that some jobs require beyond just the hours that you would be in the office. And maybe that isn't as glamorous as, and it would be, in a sense, it would be for the attorney that is doing all of the prep work in the office before they ever end up in a courtroom, or for the doctor that is learning a new skill before they ever have to perform that procedure on a patient, or a pilot, or an engineer, or a plumber, or an electrician, or it goes on and on and on, right? I mean, the things that we do in preparation are often what is not seen, and sometimes not. Maybe there's little thanks for that, other than the fact that when we are doing our job, that the expertise immediately comes into play. And if I might, just another quick little story is that when we moved into the house that I'm in right now, and there are still boxes everywhere, so we're still unpacking, but we discovered that the 220 amp for the electric dryer, clothes dryer, was not working. And we thought that was odd, because certainly the people that had been here before had a working dryer. We discovered that they had a gas dryer and were only using 110, but the 220 had never been wired. Now, I've done some electrical work, and frankly, 220 makes me a little bit nervous because I've been jolted by 220 and it hurts. So I called an electrician. The electrician came out, did his diagnosis, and what we found out was that the wires into the circuit box had never been connected to anything. And he says, well, this takes a 30 amp breaker, and I have one on my truck. That's good. And I'll snap it in place. I'll take a 40 out that's not being used, and everything will be great. It took him half an hour at the most.
Mm-hmm.
The bill was $500.
Oh,
yeah, and that hurt. It's like, if I had known how simple it was, I really could have done it myself. But see, I don't have that expertise, and it's like, okay, 500 sounds like twice as much as it should have. But the reality is that he came quickly. He diagnosed it quickly because he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was looking for. He knew how to fix it immediately. And so he did it. And we have a dryer that's working. So even though I am still not super happy about the bill,
Right. Well,
uh, the reality is that he did his job because he knew how.
right. The
Yeah.
fact that he took 30 minutes instead of 2 hours.
But
Well,
what is not seen, of course, is how many hours of training it took to
yeah,
get him to where he could open up the circuit box and know what he was looking at and immediately see, oh, here's our problem,
yeah.
and
And
then know what the fix is.
right, right. And
Yeah,
that's part of gaining experience, whether it's through some sort of internship or
right, right.
classes that you take. But
Takes
even,
years. Takes years.
yeah, even if you've had the education to do your job, every time you show up at a job, at least for me, every time I've shown up at a new job, I can show them certificates in IT
Hmm. Hmm.
or business management or whatever. But what it amounts to is you have to learn their business.
Hmm.
You have to,
Hmm.
pay the dues, so to speak,
Right, right.
of
Absolutely.
showing up on time, studying, doing a little extra work, making sure you're a valuable employee. All
Right.
those are all part of creating a work environment that you can reach on to, clasp to identify yourself with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in the process, it certainly does build character. And I think that that also helps in terms of how we deal with setbacks. Because the reality is that when we approach a challenging situation, a problem, that we don't always win, if you will, on the very first attempt.
Yeah. Now, let's change direction just a little bit. There are a lot of spiritual aspects to work,
Hmm.
a lot of mental health aspects of work. And so, doesn't that connect deeper to another dimension of who we are as a person, of who we are spiritually or mentally as we accept a new role or take a new career, a new job?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that as we and as you mentioned at the beginning, that there's identity that often comes with the jobs that we engage in. Like, for example, certainly me as a teacher and educator, right? That's an identity. Um, what I do think, though, is that as we are engaging, and in doing that, we are serving those around us. And one of the things that certainly comes to mind is that when we serve others, that we are, in fact, according to scriptural reference, we are in the service of our God. And so as we then learn about what it means to work, um, and of course we start with chores, right? And those become the lessons of life. Service becomes second nature, and we discover the value of effort without expecting a financial reward in every case. Now, that doesn't mean, let's be clear, let's understand that there are rewards to doing a good job. There's the feeling of accomplishment. There can be the pleasure, if you will, of the person that we are serving. They
Mhm.
can be delighted, and in that we find reward, and it uplifts us. It chemically it releases dopamine when we're doing a good job, and we're told that we're doing a good job, and that people appreciate what it is that we're doing for them.
Yeah. And the best place to learn those kind of skills is in the family.
Absolutely.
Think about your youth as you were growing up. Did you have chores that you had to do on a regular
Yeah,
basis?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and as I got older, those chores became more complex as a
Mhm.
a preteen youth, I remember that some of my chores were helping my mom wash the dishes because we did not have a dishwasher. This would be in the late 60s. Sweeping the floor. But as I got a little bit older, I was mowing the lawn. And then as a teenager, I was helping my dad actually take care of the lawns around our church building.
Mm.
So every Saturday we were there, and not when I say we, it was my dad, it was me. Sometimes my mom would help, but my sister, my brother, that were old enough to help, we were running edgers and mowers, including a riding mower. We were engaged as a family to make the grounds of the church look good, to be neat,
Yep.
to be tidy, right? And we certainly did learn, as my dad helped us have greater skills, but also to take pride in the work that we had done, to be pleased that we had done the best that we could.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I remember just a short story. About 25 years ago, we moved into our current home. My oldest son at the time was about 11 years old. And I remember the church group said, okay, on Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, we're going to gather at this single lady's home
Mm-hmm.
and do some yard work. It was fall and the leaves had fallen, and we were afraid that it was going to storm soon, and then it just makes a horrible mess for springtime cleanup. So we were going
Right.
to mow the lawn again, sweep up the leaves, trim some of the trees, haul away the trash. Well, me being the human part of me anyway, like 7 o'clock in the morning. Are you kidding? And it's
Of
going to be
course.
cold. It's like middle of October. It's just going to be a cold, and it was kind of rainy. And I thought, oh, if I could get out of this, I would. But I already prepped my son for it, and he was up and ready to go. And I thought, okay, the responsibility. He taught me a lesson. Okay.
Interesting.
In fact, he was on as a guest host a month or so ago on this. He's in his late 30s, got a great career. But when he was 11, he taught me a lesson of showing up for work. And we went up there, and as I walked on to the yard, there was a neighbor with the largest vat of hot cocoa and about 6 dozen donuts.
Oh my goodness.
And he was out greeting people. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Here, have some hot cocoa. Here's some donuts. Enjoy. Oh, and now here's a rake and here's some bags. Here you go. And
Great.
there was maybe 20, 25 people that showed up. And so the work went really quick. I don't think we were there more than 90 minutes. I mean, it was just a great event. People were laughing, having fun.
Yeah.
It was kind of drizzling and cold, but you know what? The hot cocoa and the donuts and the brotherhood of that community
Right.
really struck in. So from then on, when I was thinking of a service project, I think, oh, hey, there's hot cocoa and donuts for sure, right?
I love that story, and that's a great story. And I think that sometimes we in our society, again, we're driven, we're focused on how do we make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that we have to work somehow to make money. Sometimes people actually go to the extreme and say, okay, how can I do the least and earn the amount of money, which again, there. And I also don't want to downplay the fact that the more knowledge that we have and the more skill that we have, the more valuable we become in terms of what we can earn and how we can serve. What I think is we've got to be careful, and it's too easy to fall into the trap of downplaying or minimizing or even worse, where we make fun of a job that seems to be beneath us. It's menial, and therefore, we're too important or too skilled or too knowledgeable.
Oops.
Am I back? I'm
There
back.
you go. Sorry, folks. We had a little glitch in our
And I
connection.
don't know who was being recorded, whether it was you or me.
That's right.
Well, maybe you'll have to look into that, oh tech guru.
Yeah, that's right.
What,
Well, you're
what I was saying is that we have to be careful that we don't demean honest labor.
right.
And sometimes, we think of people who are doing something that doesn't take an advanced degree, like a janitor. But a janitor is performing a valuable set of skills and a
Mm.
service that is absolutely necessary. And I make a point of greeting the janitor at our school, calling him by name, asking him, how things are going, and thanking him for what he does to help keep my classroom tidy. And certainly, I know that when on the super rare occasion when I've had a student sick in class, and you can kind of just quickly imagine what that might look and smell like. It's the janitor that takes care of it, and that is something that I am super grateful for. And, but again, whether we're talking about parenting, whether we're talking about caregiving, there's sometimes these roles that are being minimized by society. And I think that it's wrong. I think
Mhm.
that we should value all kinds of labor, all kinds of service, and recognize the importance that they play.
Yeah, and when my kids were in junior high, there was a particular janitor that had a terrific ability to remember names.
Fantastic.
Over the period of his career, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years, he worked as the janitor at the junior high. He knew names. He called them by names. He called them
Wonderful.
friends. Um, Everybody in that school knew they had a friend in the janitor.
See, that is fantastic. That's above and beyond the call of duty, if you will.
Yeah, in addition, sometimes the kids would help him out.
Really, that's
And
fabulous.
do you think those kids would worry about, throwing a paper on the floor or a pop can in the corner? No, they were making sure that it was a good, clean school because they saw him taking pride in his job and followed it.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So, perfect example of working hard and making the best of his situation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, again, we've talked a little bit about culture undervaluing menial or blue collar jobs, and we're saying that that should not happen. All honest work should have dignity to it. So, maybe you have a way of expanding on that.
Well, I have kind of a little story that I just read about this morning. A friend of mine runs a small retail shop, and he often hires teenagers.
Hmm.
And of course, with teenagers comes some responsibility of training and teaching them, and
Right, right.
and hopefully they're responsible enough to work. Well, the other day he had a 16-year-old girl that's working with him, was helping a client, and he didn't say what the issue was, but this this lady, this mysterious woman, was not being very kind to his employee,
Hmm.
and it was obviously upsetting him. And he kind of stepped back a little bit and kind of watched to make sure things weren't getting out of hand, and hoped that she could solve it herself. But when it was evident that she needed a little help, he stepped in
Good.
found out what the issue was, and he gently told the lady, "I'm sorry, but I don't appreciate the way you treated my employee. I will give you a refund and ask you not to come back in my store again
Wow.
because this young lady is more important to me than this one sale."
Wonderful.
And wow, the employee was almost in tears, and to have that kind of backup from
Hmm.
a boss,
Hmm. Yeah.
that
Hmm.
really taught her a lesson in it. And in addition, he said that about 9 p.m. that evening, the phone rang, and it was the mother of this 16-year-old girl. And he
Wow.
was afraid that she was going to be a little bit angry. But no, she was so grateful. She was emotionally grateful that he stood up for his employee. And think of the work ethic that he taught in that
Right.
simple
Right.
action of helping that
Yep.
employee feel appreciated. That's loyalty that
Yes.
is
Yes.
difficult to get out of an employee from then on.
Right. Right. And I've shared before on this YouTube station, if you will, that I certainly learned that from your dad
Mm,
working at Burgoyne Computers, to see how he put his employees first, and trusting that if he supported us in every way possible, that we would obviously and automatically take care of the customers, which I think that we all felt an ownership, even though we weren't all owners of the company, but we felt that pride and that trust, and certainly did our very very best to make sure that every customer's needs were handled to the very best, not just a minimal amount, but to the very best that we could.
right.
And sometimes that meant that we worked together, we collaborated together as a team in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so valuable what we can learn through the application of work. And, I think I may have mentioned at some point that between my first paying job and now, I've had about 35 different jobs. Now, some of them didn't last very long. Some of them lasted for several years, like being a teacher. I'm now on year 17. But there was a job in between being a teacher and coming back to be a teacher, um, but I am so often pleased with the total body of experience that I have been fortunate to blessed to have been able to have. But a lot of that experience definitely came from my dad, learning from him how to do things. And even though I don't like to mess around with 220 electricity, or gas lines, that's the other one that I don't like to mess around with.
Right. Right.
I do a lot of the maintenance on our home. I do a lot of the uh, uh, labor to keep things in good repair and functional, and I learned a lot of that from my dad. And so certainly recognizing what we learn from the family environment is vital. And then the idea, again, let's just hit it one more time, is that no job is too small to learn from. No job is too small to be valuable to society or to a community. And if we really understand that, then we will praise and find value in everybody that does anything in terms of serving the community and earning their way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And those years working for my dad, I learned tremendous valuable lessons of
Of
work
course,
beyond
of course.
mowing the lawn,
Right,
even turning that into managing a business.
right.
Now, the dignity that goes on with a career, I've been called everything from a nerd to a geek to
Me
uh,
too.
a technologist is the latest one. That's kind of the new, well, it's not new, but I think it's gaining some traction again. Is, oh, he's a technologist. That could be anything related to technology. But I did have a part-time job once, and about the time I got married, I worked as an assistant to an electrician.
Oh, I didn't know that. I should
Yeah,
have called you for that 220 job, huh?
no, no. I learned very quickly I did not want to be an electrician. So if you have those kind of jobs and you work at it, you're
Yes,
going to learn what you don't want to do.
this is true. This is true.
But the
Yeah.
most important, I think, is, and when I was hiring, when I worked at one particular company, I was the hiring manager for 3 of the 4 departments in the company. And the thing I appreciated most out of employees was showing up on time,
Hmm.
giving an honest effort, not
Right.
trying to trick the system into getting
Right.
more time off.
There's a lot to say about integrity right there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, just working hard and trying, and I would say 90% of the time, if somebody was doing that much, there's a lot of knowledge or an experience that will overcome.
Hmm.
So having that kind of an attitude to go in, to be honest, to work hard, to be prompt. I mean, I've got a book on my shelf right behind me. It's 101 Ways to Be Successful at Work. And it's a terrific little book. And I'm sure you could go and ask Chat GPT, what for 101 ideas now and give it. But
Right. It probably
that
could.
was
Yeah.
20 years ago before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, certainly, what we learn, of course, is that through doing our best and making an honest effort, right? Even if we make mistakes, even if we ultimately, and I shouldn't say ultimately, even if that means that temporarily we fail,
Hmm.
and that doesn't mean that we quit. That means that we've had a setback, but it opens up learning opportunities. And like you said, sometimes we learn what we don't want to do, and
Yep.
that's okay. That's
Hmm.
okay. But what is interesting is that when we do our very best, there's a sense of satisfaction and pride that can only come through the effort and then then seeing how we are recompensed. And again, that doesn't always mean money, but again, through our society, we are in a capital uh, world, right? Or in and a nation, a capitalist society, and so of course we all need to earn money because that's how we pay our way. That's how we pay for the other goods and services, including food, that we need to survive, right? Um, I just think that learning how to work and work well, which in some cases means that it's hard work. And I literally have dug trenches. I have literally done so many different kinds of manual labor um, that, and while there was pride in what I was doing, it's like, okay, this is not what I would want for me to make a career out of. And I had um aspirations towards something different.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that hard work is how we grow, and automating hard work can save money in the long run, but it's not the same as when we are directly involved in producing either a service or a product.
Right. And the efficiency of work is important to do, is important to consider. How can I do my job better? It
Yes, thank you.
but on the opposite end, I don't know that it's opposite, but a little different direction is saying, what kind of work can I get out of doing?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you're looking at making efficiencies so that you don't have to work harder or that you can be more efficient. If
And
you're
that's okay. That's okay, because what that does, of course, is it brings back time that we can invest into our families and other relationships, right?
Yeah, years ago there was a group that did some work studies at Westinghouse, they started making telephones, in the 20s and 30s, when telephone just was getting to be the thing to have in your house.
Right.
And the companies were just exploding that had anything to do with a telephone. Well, they wanted to make the production floor more effective. They had assembly lines where people would assemble the telephones. They would have testing stations where they would test them, and they tried different things. So first they tried increasing the light brightness in the workroom.
And I'm sure that had an impact.
It did. It increased their performance 3-4%. That's noteworthy. And then they worried about the height of the desks.
Mm.
And so they would lower the desks a little bit and maybe make it a little bit more easy to move, have room to work. Guess what? Production increased a little bit. But then one of the bright guys decided that they were going to raise the desks a little bit.
Okay.
And production increased again. They lowered the light brightness and production increased again.
Okay.
Different things, up and down, left and right, and every time it increased the production. And so
how interesting.
Their conclusion was, the more you pay attention to an employee, the more effective they will be in their job.
Interesting.
They were asking, what ideas do you have to increase your productivity? When they did that, they increased productivity. They knew they had an enrollment in the goal and the objectives of the company. So just a fabulous little tweak of the mind in order to come up.
I love it.
Increase productivity.
And I don't know if you noticed, our listening audience, but that just happened to be a reversal as Randy gave us a history lesson. And I loved it. Way to go, Randy.
Well, that was in one of my business management classes. And
Excellent.
I remembered, see?
Yes, because it had applicability.
Right. And so just to wrap up, I think dignity of work, like we started talking about, comes from showing up, giving the effort, serving others, no matter what the role,
absolutely,
no matter what the pay.
Right.
And when we don't, if we try to show up late, wander in, we're not giving our full effort, we're not really caring about others and how they feel, that reflects on us mentally.
Yes.
I think if someone's a little bit discouraged in the way they think their work is going, maybe they can revitalize it by showing up a little bit early, giving a little extra effort in some areas, serving others, looking for little ways that they can help somebody
right
in their job, maybe find a way that they can be more effective.
Yeah. And to be clear, just because a job is hard does not mean that it is a job that's not worth doing, or a job that is that you can't enjoy. In fact, I think a lot of people, when something is hard, they enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out how to do it better, more efficient, like you said, and to essentially win the challenge, right? So I think, again, it's that positive mindset that makes all the difference. We can gripe, we can grumble, we can complain. That has never solved anything, unless somehow in the griping, complaining, it triggers a solution and a resolution to try to make the situation better. But typically all that does is kind of bring us down, and pretty soon we're burned out and we want out. We're going to quit. But when we do exactly as you just said, when we apply our very best and we feel the reward of that effort, then we're likely not only to do a great job, but we're likely to feel again that pleasure that we have done something that is worthwhile, especially as it then relates to how we help other people.
Right, right. And that's whole mentality of when a manager, in fact, my dad would say this: if you have something to complain about, bring a solution.
Yes, I remember that.
Bring me a
And I have
solution.
applied it in every job that I've had since.
Yep. That's a valuable lesson that's lasted me my whole career.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being with us. We hope that you have found some joy and some inspiration in the subject as we've discussed work and its value. And we hope that you will join us again. So be sure to like and subscribe to Centered.Live and join us back here in a week. We will be back with you again.
Great. And we will see you next time.